All right, welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to talk about compositions of functions. So in this section, you're going to learn the definition of the composition of two functions, how to compose two functions to determine a solution, and then how to determine the domain of composed functions. So a composition of two functions involves inputting one function into another. So the composition of two functions is written as this equation here. It's read f of g of x. And as you can see, you're plugging g of x into f of x. So for example, we've got f of x is equal to 9x minus 4, and g of x is equal to 3x plus 2. And we want to find f of g of x. F of g of x. So that means we're going to take g of x and plug it into f of x. So for f of x, we have 9 times x minus 4. And we're going to replace x with the function g of x. So 3x plus 2. And now we're just going to distribute and simplify. 9 times 3 is 27x. 9 times 2 is 18. Minus 4, and we get 27x plus 14. That's the composition of those two functions. And so let's try some more examples. When you're given discrete values for x, so when you're given a number for x, plug x into the nearest function and then take your answer and plug it into the one furthest away. So we're given two functions, f of x is 4x squared plus 3, and g of x is 3x minus 2. And we want to find f of g of 3. So what that means is we want to find f of g of 3. So we need to plug 3 into g, and then we're going to take that answer and plug it into f. Well, we can see that g of 3 is 3 times 3 minus 2, which is 9 minus 2, which is just 7. So since g of 3 is 7, we now want to find f of 7. And so to do that, we're going to plug 7 into f of x. That's 4 times 7 squared plus 3. So that's 4 times 49 plus 3, which is 196 plus 3, which is 199. Do the same for the next two problems. Except for this, now we're looking for g of f of 1, which means we're going to plug 1 into f first, and then plug the answer into g. This is g f of 1. Okay? Well, f of 1 is just 4 times 1 squared plus 3. So f of 1 is just 7. We're then going to plug 7 into g, and we get 3 times 7 minus 2, which is 21 minus 2, which is 19. So for the first problem, we got 199. For the second one, we got 19. Finally, we want to find f of 0. And so what that means is we're going to plug 0 into f, and then take the answer and plug it into f again. So this is f of 0. Well, f of 0 is 4 times 0 squared plus 3, which is 0 plus 3, which is just 3. And now we're going to plug 3 in, plug 3 back into f, and you get 4 times 3 squared plus 3, which is 9 times 4, which is 36, plus 3, which is 39. So when we compose functions and we're given discrete values for x, when you're given what x is equal to, then you should be able to get numerical answers at the end. So you're not always given a discrete value for x. If there's no value given for x, then you just want to substitute one function into the other, just like we did in the very first example. Always plug the function on the right into the function on the left. Basically, you're going to replace x in the left function with the entire function on the right. And so to find the domains of these functions, first find the composed function and then determine the domain. And remember the rules for domains. You can't divide by 0, and you can't have a negative under a square root. So we're given two functions here, f of x and g of x. We want to find the two compositions, f of g of x and g of f of x. And then we just want to determine the domain. So first of all, we're given f of x is 2x squared plus 8, and g of x is 5x plus 1. The first thing we want to find is f of g of x. And so that means we want to take g of x and plug it into f. And so for f, we have 2 times x squared plus 8. And we're just going to plug g in for x in f. So 5x plus 1 squared, 5x plus 1 times 5x plus 1. Five x times 5x is 25x squared, plus 5x, plus 5x, plus 1. And so we get 25x squared plus 10x plus 1. Okay, so that's equal to our squared term. Now to find f of g of x, we just have to simplify everything. 5x plus 1 squared is the same thing as 25x squared plus 10x plus 1 plus 8. So now we need to distribute the 2. You get 50x squared plus 20x plus 2 plus 8, which just says f of g of x is 50x squared plus 20x plus 10. Now that we've found this function, we can determine the domain. Well, the domain of this function, there's no denominator, there's no square roots. So the domain is just all real numbers, from minus infinity to infinity. So now we want to find g of f of x. Remember, f of x, 2x squared plus 8. And g of x was 5x plus 1. And now we want to find g of f of x, which means we're going to take f of x and plug it into g. And so g is 5 times x plus 1. And we're just going to replace x with 2x squared plus 8. We don't have to square anything here, so now we can just distribute and simplify. 5 times 2x squared is 10x squared. 5 times 8 is 40, plus 1. And we get 10x squared plus 41. And now, once again, we can determine the domain just by looking at the function. There's no denominator, no square root. So the domain is just all real numbers, from minus infinity to infinity. So at the end of this lesson, you should be able to find the composition of given functions and determine the domain of composed functions.